So Mickey Rourke stars in a film adaptation of a novel wrapped in voodoo noir mysticism. But the mystery that lies before you is one you never want to solve. In Alan Parker's film of Angel Heart. In 1955 New York, private investigator Harry Angel is contacted by attorney Herman Weinsap on behalf of his client Louis Cypher for a job. Angel is tasked with finding a crooner named Johnny Favorite, aka Jonathan Liebling, who struck it famous before World War II. However, he was drafted in the Special Entertainment Division, suffered severe injuries, and returned home a catatonic. He owes Cypher a debt from early in his career, which is due to be paid. Angel, also a veteran of the war, agrees to take on the job, which takes him to a hospital in Poughkeepsie, New York, where Liebling was being treated. Yet he quickly deduces that Dr. Albert Fowler had been forging documentation on behalf of a man and woman who absconded with a bandaged up and defaced Liebling 12 years earlier. Yet in trying to dry out the duplicitous doctor from his morphine habit to clear his memory, Angel returns to Fowler's home, to him apparently having taken his own life. Angel's continued investigation uncovers Johnny's relationship with the wealthy fortune teller Margaret Krusemark, who worked on Coney Island as Madame Zora, but returned home to New Orleans years ago. Thus Harry is forced to follow his leads down to Louisiana. Yet things get more bizarre in the Deep South, as black magic soon envelops the mystery of Johnny's disappearance. Harry weaves through Johnny Favorite's old life with his old flame Margaret Krusemark, turning a cold shoulder to Johnny's memory, his ex-bandmate Toot Sweet warning Harry off, and discovering Epiphany Proudfoot, Johnny's illegitimate daughter. After witnessing Toots and Epiphany in a voodoo ritual in the woods, Harry learns that Epiphany is a voodoo priestess, just like her mother. However, the closer Harry gets to the truth, the more carnage lies in his wake, as everyone he talks with ends up dead. Meanwhile, Cypher largely claims ignorance towards knowledge of Johnny's associates, as Angel is zeroed in on by the local police for the murders. Margaret's influential father Ethan puts toughs on Harry to drive him out of town, but it's ultimately the elder Krusemark that knows the horrifying devilish truth of what happened to the crooner who sold his soul for fame. Yet all the while, Harry flashes on haunting memories he can't reconcile, but the revelations of Johnny Favorite will soon break his reality. So the film of Angel Heart, a co-production between the US, UK, and Canada, saw its North American theatrical release on March 6, 1987, with a later UK release in October of that year, all distributed by Columbia TriStar Pictures and produced by Coralco Pictures, on a budget of about $18 million, returned just over $17 million at the box office, making a definite financial failure for Coralco, who had also been dealing with some other projects that didn't quite get the traction of something like Walter Hill's Extreme Prejudice, that very much was a box office bomb, and color little things here and there. And so a lot of their ambition was getting a little bit stifled at this point in time until they kind of looked towards more big budget affair later on in the 80s and into the early 90s. But the story of Angel Heart starts in 1978 with the publication of the novel Falling Angel from author William Hjortsberg, which I hope I'm getting that right because I cannot find a definitive source about how to pronounce that man's last name, but it was published to great acclaim. Like, everyone had good things to say about it, even Stephen King had good things to say about it, so it's a good stamp of approval in that regard. And Hjortsberg was trying, right from the outset, trying to get this made into a feature film. He was writing his own screenplay for it and shopping it around, and it got to a couple different places here. It got up to like John Frankenheimer at Paramount Pictures, and they were kind of starting to develop things here and there, then things kind of went off, and they got another director called Dick Richards, who was interested in getting Dustin Hoffman starring the film, but then that kind of went on the skids. They went off to Robert Redford. Interesting pick in that regard, but eventually that falls away too, and Hjortsberg comes to a point of starting to think like, does anyone really want to make this entire thing because of all the subject matter of the whole thing? A lot of things that creatives want to kind of keep doing to the whole thing, saying like, oh, why can't this thing have a happy ending? Or various other things, like they're kind of putting their fingers in the pot and stirring things around, and it's generally becoming a disheartening experience for the author of the book. But eventually the option from Paramount Pictures lapses on the entire novel, Eventually, producer Elliot Kastner gets in his head to talk with Alan Parker off the UK, and Alan Parker's got such an eclectic career. This guy's done musicals like Bugsy Malone and Fame and Evita, then does stuff like Midnight Express and Mississippi Burning. Like, this guy can pretty much do whatever you put in front of him, apparently. And so they go to him, and he's kind of courting the whole thing. It's like he's very much on board with the idea, but he wants to do the script himself. He wants to take the novel and work it over and see what he can do with it. And eventually a lot of the changes he does make from the novel into the film were approved by William Hjortsberg. And so he goes along the whole thing, and eventually, once they get the entire script draft put together, they go to Mary Gassar and Andrew Vina of Carloco Pictures to back the whole thing. And so in 1986, they actually get to film the whole thing. And the interesting couple of little things, like, there's not like drastic changes from the novel to the film, because I went through a couple chapters on the audiobook, which is a pretty good audiobook, but it's more just like there's more just scenes of Harry Angel going through the detective work, going from one person to the next, trying to unravel the mystery, kind of a little more links in the chain, the whole thing, and just there are some small changes, but they're particularly impactful changes. The fact that the novel itself completely takes place in New York State, but the film obviously goes from New York down to Louisiana, because Parker felt like you got all this stuff with the voodoo and the mysticism, all that type of stuff, all those things with the witchcraft and various other things. It just felt natural to go down to Louisiana for the film to find the story down there, to kind of develop you into that culture so deeply and so saturated in that regard, fit you into that realm, to kind of even throw Harry Angel further out of his comfort zone. It's such an interesting, like, it seems like it's such a natural idea to just go that route with the entire thing. There's a few other things kind of condensed and trimmed, and kind of things here and there kind of altered a little bit, but there's particular changes towards the end of the film that I will mention a little later on the review here. But the fact that they went through all this kind of work to scout locations in actual New York and go down to Louisiana and kind of do all the art direction for the entire thing. That's set in 1955, with a novel set in 1959. And Parker felt the fact that he wanted to move it a little bit back, shove it back a few years, because he felt like 59 is just on the cusp of the 60s, and that's a completely different complexion of cultural identities and various other things, so much kind of removed from like the 30s and 40s and stuff like that, that the 50s is still a little bit in the wake of the entire World War II era and everything like that. So there's still a lot of cultural bleed through from that era into kind of the early to mid 50s in that regard. So we really want to kind of tap into that, because the war is so much of a central cog in the story. Kind of nice, astute things they went through the text. I felt like all these things could really kind of work better if I moved this over here, kind of shift this thing here. Very smart type of things that Alan Parker went into the film to really craft so many interesting things about it. And like I said, they shot things in Harlem, New York, Manhattan, Coney Island, New Jersey. Also went down to New Orleans and Thibodaux, Louisiana. A lot of different places to kind of grasp the right feels they want for all these little locations. And of course, with a lot of the art direction stepping in to dress everything properly with all the right cars, the right clothing, all the little things that would create the immersion into that time period. And like, there's such a quality about the entire film that doesn't feel like it was a 1987 film. There's nothing here that says 80s to anyone at all. This could easily be something that was shot back in the 60s, or the 70s in particular, or maybe something like a 90s independent film or something like that hit the festival circuit or something like that. It's got a certain feel to it that doesn't stick its place in the filmmaking techniques of any particular era. It's very smart how that kind of comes together as something that's so enveloping into the style of the time period set in. And Parker just achieves that so very well with this very grimy, weathered look to everything. Like, everything from New York down to New Orleans has that lived-in reality, that world that feels just like, man, it got texture to it. Just like, this is a film with so much texture in so many different ways. And it's just a great type of thing, how he, just the eye he has for every little thing in the film. Just like everything just looks absolutely perfect. And what it needs to elicit from the audience of the time period and the styles of characters and people is kind of dealing with the entire thing. And let me tell you, the cinematography in this film, oh my god, it's slam bang, knocked me out. Michael Saracen is a regular collaborator with Alan Parker throughout much of his career, and this guy, my lord, he nails noir aesthetic. Whoo, good. Watching the 4K edition, it looks so good because, I mean, they're not afraid of blackness. The contrast, the shafts of light, all little things to create the mood, the atmosphere, which is not just noir, but it's horror noir. And you have to have a little more lean in to the darkness when you're dealing with horror as well. There's such a permeating sensibility of foreboding in the entire film. Such a quality of what he does with the lighting and the camera angles and how he composes everything in the entire film. It slowly tips you further into that entire realm there. Like, it gives you that mood overall. Like, there's something in the makeup of the film, how it's shot, how it's presented, various other things that Alan Parker does as director to further the entire thing of knowing there's something more than just a noir mystery here. Everything's just a little bit pitch darker, a little bit more conspicuous to certain degrees in some places. Here's like, it's all these really great shots in the film tell a story here that just further descends you into a very deep, dark type of place here. What the novel doesn't have, that the film does have, is tipping you off that it is a horror story. There's something more going on than just a mystery. It's much more of a fearsome sensibility about how the story is progressing and the implications that it may have at the end of the entire thing, without tipping his hand too much, but just like is injecting that tone into the noir mystery that I think is just so expertly done between everything that's going on with the visuals, but also the music. The score from Trevor Jones. I love this thing. When I was first watching this a year ago, I was really into it because he used saxophone for all the noir stuff, but also synthesizers to give that ominous atmosphere to the entire thing. Ooh, this thing chilled. I love the entire quality. It's like, again, it's texture. It's great texture of the entire film. It's got a little theme going on. It's got a little thing of the Johnny Favorite song floating through the entire motif of the score overall. All these little things. It's such a, it's got mood. It's got mood to spare. I do have an objection though, because the soundtrack albums released that have the music from Trevor Jones, but every so often they cut in audio clips from the film over top of the music, and I'm annoyed by this. I want a proper release of this score, complete 100% without any of that crap. I want to hear the music pure, because it's a great score. Oh my goodness. I just love the fact that it, not just the score, but it's like it brings in all those other kind of blues and slightly jazz things here and there, all these little things to create the musical landscape of Johnny Favorite. Everything that was kind of going on with his scene to permeate the entire film and have all the stuff like Too Sweet and all the players in the film to just create that cultural backdrop, as well as the entire thing Trevor Jones is doing with the mystery and the intrigue and the terror, all the different things swirling around the entire story here. Wonderful score all over the place. I was very much impressed by what Trevor Jones does, and I know him from scores he did like Sea of Love, Last Mohicans, which are just not even close to these type of scores. They're very different scores, like 3 different scores that have very different sensibilities about them, but he nails the crap out of every single one of them. Of course, he's got a long list of other scores that have done exceptional work on that regard, but this was a real special treat here in this whole thing, because it's just like it just taps into that deep, dark, black heart of the entire film, and it's just really damn good, meshing again the noir and the horror together. Great type of stuff from him. And the cast assembled for Angel Heart is very interesting in terms of how they got assembled, because the role of Harry Angel was originally offered to Jack Nicholson. Alan Parker met with him, and they discussed things back and forth, but from Parker's sort of account of the whole thing, he felt like Nicholson was a little preoccupied with some other things going on in his life or something else like that, and wasn't thoroughly interested, so Nicholson passed, and they went with Mickey Rourke. Now, this guy who was building himself up in a hot type of way, to a certain degree, he'd done stuff like Heaven's Gate, and Diner, and Pope of Greenwich Village, and Year of the Dragon, and 9.5 Weeks was a big one for him, but there's a lot of things in his life and career is very sordid, but a lot of things he passed on, like big roles he passed on in different places, because kind of an odd relationship in how he felt about acting at different points in time in his life. At this point in time, wasn't quite as hot on certain things. Like, some things went off well, some things didn't go off too well, and kind of hit or miss type of stuff here and there. but he kind of really got attracted to the role of Harry Angel. But as things go along, Parker felt like he was kind of a nightmare to work with, because every time he comes on set, you're never quite sure exactly what Mickey Rourke you're going to get and what exactly he's going to be doing on set. And he's kind of an erratic, unpredictable personality to a certain degree, and certainly that was certain things that would kind of follow along, both life and career for himself. But in the role, on screen, I think Rourke does a very good job. Like, there's something about Mickey Rourke where he feels right at home in noir. Like, it's not the only noir stuff he's done. I mean, you just look at Sin City, him as Marv. That's the most perfect fit of any casting I've ever seen in my life. 100% iconic, 100% perfect fit in that regard. And this Harry Angel, he slips it so very well. Feels like he should have been a star back in like the 30s or 40s with this type of vibe he has, the handle he has on this type of character. It's very interesting because as the film goes on, as I already mentioned, he's gradually thrown further and further out of his depth. Like he even says up to Louis Cypher, "Oh, I just work like insurance cases, divorce cases, like real lightweight type of stuff that's like nowhere the depth of what he's getting into on this entire thing here." But I like so much what Rourke brings to the role is this very interesting physicality overall. It's like there's certain places in the film where his charm that he uses to elicit information and draw truths out of certain people melds with the entire kind of awkward physicality he has in some places. Like some places he's very confident, while other places he's playing things a little bit more almost nebbish to a certain degree. Because he's been thrown all these different places and these different cultures that feel very alien to himself, like going off to Harlem or going down to New Orleans. These are all places he doesn't belong. It doesn't feel comfortable. It's very awkward trying to navigate these places here, and I feel that in how he carries himself in certain scenes. But it's also that entire thing, like I said, he's got charm, he's got charisma, he's got a swagger to him. So you have to have the swagger as well, because that's such a hard-boiled noir detective thing. You have to have a guy who feels like he can navigate certain social situations and kind of throw his weight around in some place. But like when he's dealing with Dr. Fowler, the kind of hopped-up doctor who's jonesing for his morphine in his house, and he starts leaning into him. He's kind of strong-arming him to a certain way. So he's got this more aggressive side to himself, a little bit more that harder edge to himself to kind of deal with certain situations. Even when he's dealing with Ethan Kruzmark later on in the film, where he's kind of going off with the ice pick and all the different things, and he's being very, very intensified in this sequence. There's just a lot of different facets to the character of Harry Angel here that Rourke brings forth in such interesting types of ways. Like, I like the fact that when all the revelations start bombarding him and gets closer and closer to what the actual truth is, that the man he's actually been tasked with finding this entire time is actually staring him in the mirror. Starts ripping him apart. He cannot reconcile any of this stuff. It's a very intense emotional reaction that Rourke just puts all its weight into, because that's what the story demands. It has to be this entire thing that's ripping apart your own sense of self and just brings forth the entire thing and the consequences of what that means for himself. Everything on top of that, from everything to do with Epiphany and all the different things that are kind of rolling into the entire idea here, it's unfathomable to him. It's just a fantastic piece of work that Rourke does an excellent job bringing forth a full-bodied performance here with, again, a lot of different elements of emotionality and characterization and different traits he has to put into this entire character that makes him very compelling and very intriguing to see unfold on screen, and have him as a protagonist to walk you through this entire very bizarre mystery that he's very much so much at the center of, much more than he even believes. So it's a really fascinating performance he puts on the entire film, and I think it deserves a little bit more recognition for what he's done in the entire film, because he has some ups and downs in his career, but some of his best performances are very much well regarded. This one I think should stand alongside those as well. And the inclusion of Robert De Niro to the cast is very interesting, because originally he was also being quoted for the Harry Angel role, but De Niro was much more interested in the Louis Cypher role. But it took many, many months for Parker to actually get him to sign on to the film, because De Niro was combing through every little detail of the script to talk with Parker, pretty much deconstruct everything. I want to know exactly every little piece of what you're doing with the entire story, every little thing. So he wants to go on the entire thing with an exact, clear vision of exactly what we're doing here, and knows exactly how to approach the role and deal with the subject matter and the whole thing. And De Niro as Louis Cypher, as thinly veiled as that name is, he's just so wonderfully absorbed into the role and just like relishing the subtext here. I love the quality that he knows, he's got the foreknowledge of everything. He knows exactly where the scene's going to lead to, but he's got to get Harry Angel to follow everything on to know exactly where the ends are. Or just like, I love the quality that he's got this gleeful glimmer in his eye the whole time, knowing where the story is going. So he's always playing with him a little bit. Like he's got this great quality of having the knowledge within himself and kind of poking and prodding, kind of twisting Angel around a little bit here to kind of nudge him off here or kind of foreshadow a little something here or something like that. It's like he's just playing with him so very subtly, but he's having the best time possible playing this role. It's like it's a wonderfully reserved intensity he has here. Like it's a whole thing of you can chew the scenery up without being over the top. De Niro is showing you exactly how to do that. He's got all that radiance bursting out of him with doing very, very little. But he's got all those different qualities. Like he's got everything in this role of Lucifer. And it's just so goddamn good. I love so much the whole thing of just like this intensity that it just projects out of himself at certain points in time that draws you into the characters. Like he's only in a handful of scenes in the film. Like long stretches go without him being in the film, but every time he's there, it's very pertinent of how he kind of crafts the mystery around himself without letting on to what actually is going on here. It's like I love the entire thing. Just like you give just a little bit of leeway in what he knows at certain points in time without really drawing the whole thing out. It's like he knows way more than he's ever going to admit to until the end of the film, which is the interesting little part where I feel like that we lose a little bit of something. There's a few minor choices they make here at the end. It's like, the whole thing where after the reveal happens and you find out that Harry Angel is actually Johnny Favorite. He sold his soul, and he tries to do this entire witchcraft type of thing to kind of steal someone else's soul to get out of the bargain and everything like that. Then he gets the amnesia going out to the war and stuff like that, and it all rolls together in this whole thing. I love all that stuff. It's the point where De Niro's eyes go yellow, and even the kid's eyes, Epiphany's kid, turns yellow. It's like, that's a little hokey. It pulls me out of it just a little bit because it just... You're so great with doing some wonderfully subtle little things with De Niro's performance and some of the other things, laying the seeds of the entire thing. To go just a little past that line draws it back for me. Even if they did something more subtle and not so overt, it would feel better. But the yellow eyes thing just feels a little tacky to a certain degree and does kind of pulls it up. But the fact of the matter is, one of the major changes that Alan Parker did for the film versus the novel is that in the novel, Louis Cypher is the one actually killing everyone in the wake of Harry Angel's investigation. In the film, he changed it to Angel's actually the one actually killing all these people, but not remembering it until the end of the film. I kind of like that idea a little bit better, because it makes Angel more condemnable. It's like the two warring souls within himself, Johnny Favorite and Harry Angel, are kind of in a combat type of thing, and one's not entirely aware of what the other one's doing in the wake of the entire thing. So probably Johnny Favorite's like, I know these people are going to expose me and everything like that. It's going to throw the entire game out for myself. So I can kind of see the fact that, like, okay, Harry Angel's going along a certain path, but Johnny Favorite, his soul, is kind of aware, kind of unconsciously, maybe doing things in the wake of Harry Angel's investigation, trying to clean up behind him, stuff like that, to cut things out so that people don't talk anymore than they already have. I like that idea. Not saying the novel's version is bad, having Louis Cypher kind of killing off all of Johnny Favorite's friends in his wake. That's also a very good idea. But in terms of how the film executes its own ideas, I like this sort of more ambiguous idea in that regard of how it deconstructed there, that Favorite's soul is kind of taking over and taking out these people that kind of betrayed him along the way and kind of letting his secrets out in that regard and kind of exposing him in that regard. So I like both ideas. But in the film, I like the fact that they use that to make Angel more condemnable instead of being Louis Cypher. I'm going to frame you for all these murders. Now it's actually culpable because Favorite, Angel, has actually done it. It's only just now realizing he's responsible for the stuff, it makes it more complex. That he's actually responsible for the things happening instead of being framed for murder in that regard, which does allow for a sequel to actually be published many years later called Angel's Inferno, after the entire thing of Angel getting arrested and everything like that. It's a much different thing that was published posthumously after William Hjortsberg's passing in 2017. It got published in 2020. But transitioning over to Lisa Bonet as Epiphany Proudfoot, very interesting point in time in her career here because she was on The Cosby Show. Very big hit, with a lot of different things shade about it in retrospect now, but it's a very, she's about 19 years old when she's filming this movie. And this is a very risque type of role that she puts on in a very risque type of movie. And so it's a very interesting career choice, but the one thing is the fact that she approaches the role with a great maturity. I like what she brings to the character is a weight of lived history with the character. She's lived through certain experiences that have hardened her to a certain degree, given her a certain weight and gravitas to herself. She doesn't feel like a regular teenage woman. She's definitely someone's been through a lot of different things to give her a lot more grit to how she handles herself in life. So she's suffered through a lot of different things and lived through a lot of different things, and it's a very interesting life she lives. And all these different things. So I think Lisa Bonet does a really excellent performance here that is very much understated, but shows a lot of different qualities of someone who would have a lot of potential later on, but some things kind of fell off in terms of okay, supposedly Bill Cosby endorsed her going off to do the film, but after the film came out and had certain controversies about the subject matter in the film, she got kind of kicked off the Cosby Show, kicked off to a spin-off, A Different World, for 2 seasons until she got pregnant, and then she kind of came back like a recurring role and kind of regular cast member later on in the run of Cosby Show. But a lot of things really kind of got derailed to a certain degree for herself because the film was not commercially or critically successful, and so a lot of things she went off to do for the film to kind of mature her entire career up to a certain degree, probably kind of knocked her back in terms of progression of certain opportunities she may have had regardless. But getting Charlotte Rampling in the film, because the character of Margaret Kreuzmark was a very difficult one for them to cast, trying to find someone with the right qualities, and apparently it was Mickey Rourke who actually suggested Charlotte Rampling, who is a very celebrated actress. She's very, very good, and she's very good in this film. I like that she's got this slightly ethereal, sophisticated class to herself. A certain quality that just fits the entire thing of her being a little bit into the black magic stuff. Having some sort of a little bit of a veil over top of her to a certain degree, it gives her a certain mystique overall in the whole thing. I like the fact that even though she's only got one real particular scene in the whole film, she does create this entire expansion of the entire lore surrounding Johnny Favorite, getting off into the black magic stuff, a little bit of the witchcraft, all these little things, just pushes the boundaries out further. It kind of incorporates more of those supernatural elements slowly, gradually, and creepily into the fabric, everything like that, and the fact how she dies just gets ripped open and her heart gets pulled out. It just creates all these further horrific little things that kind of up the stakes of the entire story or so. Rampling does a wonderful job in this little role in the film, but no less pertinent because she was cast in that role. But she also got New Orleans native actor Stockar Fantolo as her father, Ethan Kreuzmark. He's got one major scene in the film, but it's one of the most pivotal scenes overall because this is where all the threads come together. All little things. Harry Angel's kind of weird memories and the visions he's been having, and all the interesting diabolical type of things going on with Johnny Favorite. They're starting to get creepier and creepier as the story goes on. It all flows into him because it all becomes a whole thing starts to kind of brush things off after Harry's kind of cornered him and stuff like that, and he's fought off his thugs in town and whatnot, and he's pushed him into the truth of everything, and he's trying to blow it off someone else got my daughter into all this dark, diabolical type of stuff. It's no, it was you. And he starts admitting it, stuff like that. It's I was deep in this, but Johnny Favorite was even deeper. I saw Johnny conjure the devil right in front of my living room, and it was one of those magnificent things. He sold his soul to the devil for stardom, and all these things start to unravel to the point where after he gets to the stardom, he tries to turn around on the devil and tries to do the entire thing of trying to steal someone else's soul with all these horrible, bleak, macabre incantations, this horrible ceremony, everything like that. But it's after that where he gets drafted, and he gets injuries and head injuries and gets defaced and everything like that. He has to come home, reconstructive surgery. He doesn't remember who he is. All these different things. And it's the entire thing that he poses Edward Kelly to get him out of the entire Poughkeepsie hospital with Margaret and all the type of stuff. So like all the little things start coming together. This is exactly where the mystery has to be reverse engineered from. All that great type of stuff, how you're doing a mystery and how to take that little nexus point and kind of thread it through the rest of the beginning of the story. And that's exactly where this entire stuff hits. Exactly, and it's such a great performance from him. Exhilarating to him in that regard, but it's like it's hitting Harry. Oh my God. It's just that little close away from realizing the horrible truth of what he's telling him right now. It's like it's phenomenal scene acted with such brilliance by Starker Fantalo. It's just a brilliant scene acted with such vigor that was absolutely perfectly necessary for one of the biggest scenes, most important scenes in the entire film, building up to everything that comes up after that with Harry Angel, with Louis Cypher, all that type of stuff. Just like, it was absolutely necessary, and they got the exact right actor who was right there in New Orleans, because if they didn't make those changes to the entire story where they kept it in New York, they might not even found this actor. That's a wonderful type of thing. The advantageous quality of changes they had to finding an actor who was local to where you're shooting and delivers such a great thing. And he was pretty much a very prolific man on stage, much more than film, but did have a couple of film roles here and there, but definitely stage actor was his main bread and butter and whatnot, and you could definitely see the quality what it brought forth onto the stage with the screen performance. And going further into the supporting cast here, you got Dan Florek as Herman Weinsap, the attorney representing Louis Cypher, ahead of his long-standing role in the Law & Order franchise as Captain Donald Cragen. And you got Pruitt Taylor Vince here in a very early role for himself as a New Orleans cop. He's always been a very reliable, interesting character actor who's still working today and does a very nice job in the entire film. And it's just a very well-cast film overall, directed very well, with very substantive characters to deliver something very, very intriguing on screen. But I like with the themes and the subject matter of the film delving into these much more sort of off-putting elements of certain belief systems with these religions, with the voodoo, the witchcraft, the Christianity, some things here and there, just like a little mix of different things here. I like the fact that it's kind of taking these more off-putting pieces of subject matter and kind of giving you a certain perspective into it. It's like, even though you've got Harry Angel delving this stuff that's like way outside of his comfort zone, like he doesn't have any clue what the hell any of this stuff is, but he witnesses stuff like the ritual down in New Orleans with Epiphany out in the field and the chicken and the blood and everything like that. It's all very bizarre and very disturbing to us. Like, it feels like this is like some serious black magic type of stuff, but she explains these things to him. This is what our beliefs are. It feels like when we're doing these rituals, it possesses us with a certain power overall and stuff like that. So you get an insight in the type of stuff. It's not just putting it out there for shock value or anything like that. There's actually a perception into what it is and why it is and what it does for these people and why it is something that hones these communities together and stuff like that. So I like that it shows these different cultures and kind of incorporates it into the story while also winding down these much more horrific, disturbing really parts of the whole thing where it gets into bloody, grisly type of things and very much very devilish type of things in that regard. So I like how it kind of uses the religion as a context, a kind of structure around the film to kind of give it shades in some places here. So I like that kind of quality that it's Ellen Parker being very kind of culturally aware. There's some people, again, like I said, could use some of this stuff and just be shock value. Oh, it just seems shocking to outsiders. We're just going to use that to kind of stir it up. Like, no, there's generations old belief systems here. Delve into it, explore it, explain it, get it into the context. So Harry Angel kind of gets further indoctrinated into understanding what he's dealing with here. But the whole thing, him fusing the horror and noir together, it's like it feels like such a natural marriage. Because they're both born out of darkness and that kind of bleak sensibility overall. It's like it just fits so very well. Every time it gets in, it's a horror noir thing. It just hits so well. It just hits a real good sweet spot for myself in this film. Hits it right on the money in that regard. It's like everything he uses, every technique of filmmaking, the cinematography, the music, all the little qualities of the story weave together so naturally. It's wonderfully done by him, but a lot of grisly stuff in the film, like I said, like some stuff that really tipped off the MPAA, where they actually had to cut 10 seconds of footage out of the highly graphic sex scene late in the film between Epiphany and Harry Angel. And obviously I can't show much of that footage here whatsoever, or else bye-bye for this video on YouTube. But the fact is, it's a very controversial scene. Like, the entire film has a lot of controversial elements back in 1987, probably still a little bit today. Some people will look at the film and definitely say, this stuff, I'm not comfortable with that stuff. I don't think that represents certain things very well in terms of like what to do with Epiphany in the whole film, and knowing that the fact that Epiphany is the daughter of Johnny Favorite and Harry Angel is Johnny Favorite, and that have that scene together, and the fact it's all the blood exploding out and everything like that, and it ends with this sort of like absolute like horror. It's not an elation, the whole thing. It's like striking the psyche of both of them that just did something that's horribly wrong in this whole thing. So it's like, it just is all the foreshadowing of the entire film, letting you know that it's going off in some horribly dark direction. Like, this is such a weird abnormality for a 1980s horror film. Like, typically you just didn't get stuff like this. Like, nothing this hard and serious and adult in what it's doing in the whole thing. So it's, like I said, it's a film that's completely outside of its own time frame when it was made. It's like, it's blocking everything out from the 1980s and just dealing with what it is at its core, and not allowing all that stuff to seep in or kind of influence its stuff. Because even Alan Parker wasn't happy about having to cut the film down for not to get an X rating in the whole thing, but he had to do it. And the footage pretty much got reinstated for most future home video releases, the whole thing. But it's just the entire thing. Like, Alan Parker took that subject matter of that source material in that novel and crafted a film that's impactful like living hell, even if it's a film that some people, like I said, have an aversion towards in terms of some of the visual imagery, some of the subject matter of the whole thing, some ways to handle certain aspects of different characters, the whole thing. I still think it's a hell of an achievement of artistic expression in that regard. What he did with all this stuff here is brilliantly crafted. Everything looks fantastic, sounds magnificent. The performances are so damn good, the whole film. They all hone in on the exact right wavelengths for where each of the characters are in this story, where the story is taking them to some places. It's really well done. And just like the whole thing of having certain imagery in the film that's not entirely like all explained. It's a lot of inferred type of stuff. Some stuff you have to interpret to a certain degree, like who's the woman draped in all black in some of these dream sequences. Not really explained. The whole thing of the entire thing of, again, the freight elevator descending into the blackness pretty much is kind of a pretty clear allegory to like his soul is descending into hell and stuff like that. But there's a lot of stuff in the film that's very subjective to certain degrees, but I like the fact that you can not explain everything, but still everything makes sense. And you can interpret it from the available information forward, so you don't have to have every little thing crafted to a certain degree to make sure that everything comes across as a fully defined piece of artistic expression. You can interpret it to certain different ways depending on what the film is doing for you, what the film is laying out for the story and the imagery and the context, everything else it has going on. Context can inform different things without having it fully explained. So just like that's Alan Parker delivering a film, a guy who's absolutely 100% astute as being a very talented and visionary filmmaker in that regard, with a lot of skills at his disposal in that regard. So I think he did a wonderful job making this film very, very impactful, very, very much a film that you will not forget, but it's not a film to go into lightly. That thing is for certain. But guys, if you've seen Angel Heart, let me know what your feelings are about the film in the comment section below. If you've gone through the novel, let me know how you felt about the novel as well. I went through a couple chapters of the audiobook, which again, like I said, very good narrator, does some very great voices, but I felt like there weren't quite as many distinct differences from the novel into the film for me to constantly go through the entire thing. But still, I highly recommend what I was going through. It's a very good novel, and it's a very good audiobook, so grab it up if you're very much interested in that regard. But for research purposes, I didn't find it was as necessary for me to go through the entire thing as I thought it would be. But guys, let me know everything like that. Likes, comments, subscribes if you haven't already. Patreon to contribute anything a little bit every month to help the channel move forward. Also the super thanks feature to contribute anything monetarily directly through YouTube. But guys, share links around, all that great stuff. So thanks so much. Take care. Bye bye.